Okay, welcome everyone to our pyramid practices training. I am Shy, and also on the call with me today, I have Miss D, and so she'll be keeping an eye on the chat and also taking attendance. We'd like to say thank you all for joining us today on this, I guess it's now sunny day. And today we'll be discussing challenging behaviors and how to address them, and also how to respond to children with challenging behaviors. If you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute yourself. We love to hear from you verbally, but understand if you're not able to unmute yourself and engage as much as we know you'd like. But we'll get started here. All right. So, with the pyramid model, we know it focuses on the social and emotional competence of infants and also young children as well. So, infants, toddler, preschool. And so, what we do know is that it starts from the bottom, and at the bottom there, we have that effective workforce. And so, that's just the universal promotion of social and emotional competencies. And then, as it goes up, well, in that blue part, we have the nurturing and responsive relationships that we want to make sure are in place, as well as making sure we have a high quality, supportive environment. And so that's going to be looking at routines, schedules, redirecting behavior. And then for in the green in our secondary, we have that prevention by providing more intentional intervention. So that could be some children who may need social emotional support. So support in how to engage with their peers or how to manage their emotions. But the thing is, when we have all of these things in place, sometimes we still can see those challenging behaviors in children. And that's when we get to that top tier where we may need to have those intensive individualized interventions for those. And if you see, it does say few up here at the top. So we don't, if it's the whole class, then we might have to start back at the bottom and making sure some of those things at the bottom are more in place. Our children, do the children and teachers have that warm interaction with one another? So intensive individualized intervention refers to the development and implementation of individualized behavior support plans for children with persistent challenging behavior. Important ideas to remember, and we'll definitely come back to these ideas throughout the training because they are very, very important. But some things that we want to keep in mind is its placement at the top of the pyramid model illustrates that very few children would need this level of support when all the other pyramid model practices are in place. So just as I was saying, that we want to make sure that the teachers and children have those very nurturing and responsive relationships. They do have that trusting relationship with one another. And then we also want to make sure that there is a high quality and supportive environment. But it indicates that all other practices are needed, and that the intensive individualized intervention is added to those strategies to assist children who have significant behavior challenges. And the expectation is that all the other practices, like I said, are in place, but are, and not just in place, but are implemented with fidelity so that the teachers are using them to the best of their ability. Okay. So, before we even get into the intensive intervention, we want to remember that all levels of the pyramid model must be in place. Even when a behavior seems challenging, it can often be addressed by using the other universal practices that are the foundation of the pyramid model. So, for example, like I was saying, schedules, having those behavior expectations, making sure those rules, classroom rules and things like that are in place. And it is also critical to teach social emotional skills to all children and then individualize that instruction and support to children who have social emotional skill delays. When behavior is challenging, it doesn't, or by challenging, we mean it doesn't meet the expectations and is outside of what is expected developmentally. It is important for teachers to be using evidence-based practices to reduce that behavior. So what we mean by evidence-based practices, that looks like either redirection, giving them reminders of the expectations and so forth. But we definitely want to address persistent challenging behavior, but it should be addressed in the context of all the positive practices being in place in the classroom already. All right, so here we have some quotes from teachers about challenging behavior. Let's see, we have one here that says, I've had children grab toys, but Emma is doing it constantly. The other children don't want to play with her. Another teacher says, by now I would expect Paul to have learned the routine, but he hasn't. Every day he has a tantrum during arrival. Nothing I do has helped. Excuse me. And then another teacher says, sometimes children refuse to follow directions, but Jared's behavior is extreme. He throws objects, tries to kick me, and screams. So why do you think this teacher thinks these behaviors are challenging, or what about these behaviors could be challenging? For example, the first quote with the teacher indicates that Emma's behavior doesn't look different from what other children do. So what is the concern?
So for the first one with Emma, I mean, she could be an only child and, may not be used to playing with others. It could be her first experience in school, and she may not be used to playing with others that way as well.
Definitely.
So, doing some story cards with her, some storybooks about how we play with others, doing them with the class as a whole and talking about that might be a good way to help Emma start understanding how to share with others and to play with other children. It also would help the other kids understand that we need to be understanding of kids who've never been in a big group playing with other children before too.
Definitely.
So we need to help both sets of kids. We need to help Emma learn to play with others, and we need to help the other children understand that we need to help Emma, and not wanting to play with her doesn't help her. That we need to be kind, considerate of children who are still learning how to play with other people.
Yes, thank you so much, Gloria. And notice also what this teacher said is like, I've had children that do grab toys, but Emma does it constantly, right? So
Yeah.
she's speaking a lot on that, how often. So the frequency is the problem for her, right? Too. Like she's doing it a little bit more than she's used to. And then right here in the red, by now I would expect Paul to have learned the routine, but he hasn't. Every day he has a tantrum during arrival. Nothing has helped. So what do we think her concern may be here?
I mean,
As
it
she
would
kind
be
of compared him to
every
the other
day.
children. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's every day. He definitely needs some type of intervention because it's a daily problem.
Yep. It's persistent. It's been continuing over time. And she's like, by now he should have it. And I know sometimes in the classroom we can think that too. Like we've been doing rules all year and this one friend just seems to not be getting it. Right. And that's where we might have to do that intensive individual intervention. Okay. And then in the blue, sometimes children refuse to follow directions, but Jared's behavior is extreme. He throws objects, tries to kick me, and screams.
Yeah. He needs to have some intensive and individualized help.
I like that you said he does need to have some intensive individualized help, because this teacher feels the intensity and severity of it is kind of being a bit much. One, he's putting other people in danger, and it seems to last for a long time. So the idea that there are objective measures that can help us understand when and why an intensive individualized intervention is needed. In these examples, the behavior occurs more frequently, is more intense, or persists despite the teacher responding with evidence-based strategies such as redirection. The form the behavior takes may be no different than the other children. And children sometimes take a toy from a peer or may scream, but the frequency, duration, or persistence of the behavior makes it a concern. Do we have any questions here or any comments? Either or. No?
No, I don't.
All right, we'll move along. So this slide here introduces the idea of formal team process that is used when there is a need for individualized intervention that is not responsive to other strategies, such as those other universal strategies on the pyramid, and then target prevention. So some important ideas are it is a formal process that has a team guiding. So you may see mom, teacher, as well as director all meeting together to kind of create this plan for this child. And the process includes a comprehensive functional behavior assessment, or FBA, to identify functions of the behavior and strategies that address the function of the behavior. And the strategies you use in the intervention come directly from the information you've identified during the assessment. And so we'll get into more of the assessment as well during this training. So what that's going to look like as you collect data on the child's behavior. So in this section, we'll be thinking about and discussing behavior objectively, how to define it and how to assess it within the context of the FBA. And this slide defines behavior on something we do as something we do. It has a form that we can see. So behavior can be observed and clearly defined. It's an action. That form can be defined in a way that allows everyone to observe the same thing. So we're all seeing the same thing, objective, right? And then it lists some examples here, and note that in the image of the child, this child is covering his ears, right? And so some examples of behaviors that we can see, that we can observe, is screaming. We can hear a child screaming, see a child kicking, hiding under a table during small group, hands over ears. You know, he may be overstimulated by the noise around him. Saying no to an instruction. I think we've all experienced that. Taking a toy and withdrawing or crying. And so, so when we see a child maybe covering their ears, we may ask ourselves, like, why is the child doing that? What's going on? Or what is this child trying to communicate? And you may not know any of that right away, and you only know that the behavior is that you can obviously observe is the hands over his ears with his eyes closed. But as we get into assessing the behavior and being objective about what we assess with the behavior, we'll begin to learn the functions of the behavior as well. So looking at this picture, let's talk about what we see with this friend. What is the child doing? What behavior is he showing? And remember, behavior is something we do, so something that we can see.
Well, he appears to be frustrated.
Okay.
With whatever he may be working on, because his hand is on his head and he's got this, you know,
look on his
little bit
face.
of an expression on his face, like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. I'm frustrated. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we definitely know that behavior is communication. So the child is either saying, I want something, I'm sad, I need something, whether it's help, I can't do something, I don't want to do something, or I'm just
Yeah.
feeling scared. And the important point is that what we do communicates a message, and we determine the behavior's message by paying attention to what's going on when the behavior occurs. And so forth. So when we do begin to start to plan that create that individualized plan for a child who's expressing those challenging behaviors, we do want to also assess like what the child is, what's happening at the time as well, the behaviors and also what's happening around the child at the time. And that's going to help us get to a point of what could be the real cause of these behaviors. So behavior is learned. The behavior has resulted in the child getting or avoiding something in the past that has increased the likelihood that that behavior will occur again. So when the child gets something or avoids something by engaging in certain behaviors, it increases the likelihood for it to occur again. So we're not saying that children are aware that a behavior results in avoiding something or getting something, but we are acknowledging that over time, when the behavior has occurred, it has resulted in an outcome that encourages the child to do it again. So whether that's something good or something bad. So a child knows, hey, if I throw a fit long enough, then I don't have to take a nap. I don't have to go inside from the playground. So like we said, these behaviors are learned. Okay. So behavior is used to obtain. So whether it's attention, play, sensory input, to obtain an object or an activity, such as a child taking a toy from a child, taking that toy was for them to obtain an object. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take a look at this picture here, and let's focus on the baby and let's look at what the child is doing. So what might this child learn about getting something?
Um, Appears to be play. He's getting very positive attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's playing with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's good sensory input.
Mm-hmm.
They're touching.
Yes.
The smiles on their faces. So
Mm-hmm.
the baby is learning that this is a good, happy time.
Yes.
Everybody's smiling.
Yes.
This activity is something that, he would probably want to do again
Again.
because he's having a good time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he learns once he laughs and plays and engages, he's going to get all that attention, that play, that sensory input, and everything from his family. Thank you so much, Gloria. All right. And everyone, thank you all for joining us as well. Remember, you can definitely put your answers in the chat if you're unable to unmute yourself. Feel free to respond in the chat. We've got Ms. D on with us today, and Ms. D is going to keep an eye on that chat box for us. All right. So now looking at this friend, what might he be trying to avoid?
Well, it looks like he probably doesn't want to do the activity.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going on. They appear to be outside, possibly on a playground. And it looks like he does not want to play with this child.
Right. Yep. He could be, he's really not trying to make eye contact with the little girl. I think she's trying to engage him in play. He's just really not having it. Maybe he was given a task or a direction that he doesn't want to do right now, such as maybe it's time to go inside and clean up, and he's just like not having it. And so he's kind of sat himself off, and you can tell he's in his in a stern mode where it's like, nope, not doing it, not going anywhere. Okay. So he could be trying to avoid other children or adults. He could be trying to avoid an activity, like Ms. Gloria shared. trying to avoid sharing a toy. There may be loud noises, and he's avoiding those loud noises or instructions or directions. Okay, so in the coming slides, 15, these next few slides, we're going to take a brief look at the influence of family and culture on our understanding of behavior. And so what we do know is that family partnership is very critical. Family members can help us understand the behavior, and we want to involve them at the very beginning, which is why we want to make sure those nurturing and responsive relationships are definitely in place, and not just with teacher and children, but also with the teacher and the families as well. We will also collaborate with families in the process of conducting the functional assessment and developing the intervention plan. We want to make sure we definitely have that school-home connection there. We want to understand the family's context, so we want to know their beliefs, their values, their culture, and the unique goals that the family has for their child. It will help us develop strategies that align with the family's values and beliefs and provide us with the tools we need to help the family understand the behavior and intervention. So this slide shows some of the family context that might affect our understanding of a child's behavior. And so looking here, for example, we have different values and beliefs, right? And even different ethnicity and nationality and culture and race, of course. Family composition may be different. So there may be a single parent home. It may be grandma raising the child. The child may be in foster care. It could be a blended family, same gender parents. So there's a lot of things that we want to make sure we keep an eye on and make sure we keep a focus on. In addition, the family may be recent immigrants or of different economics. And so that's why it's very important to have that classroom diversity as well, and make sure all the children are represented in the classroom. Okay, and then can anyone share any let's see, any values or beliefs that may be different based on like culture in the classroom versus at home? Thinking
Well, I
about what
know
we said about behavior. Go ahead, Miss Gloria.
yeah. So I have some friends that are, Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's different in their households is that the grandparents and everybody, they all tend to live together.
Mm-hmm.
So like when the husband gets married, his wife comes and they all live with the family,
Mm-hmm.
so the wife inherits the whole family as a whole. They all live together. So the children there are used to a lot of people being involved in their life and helping them to grow because it's a different culture. Which is pretty neat, how they take care of one another from the oldest of age to the youngest, which is really
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yes. Thank you so
So
much for
when,
sharing that.
I think it's great because the younger children just get to see a vast way of how they care for each other at different ages and, why it's important, and
Mm-hmm.
they grow up understanding that.
Yes, yes. And even I see like here it says there can be families bring a variety of languages, right? So a
Mhm.
child who may be of a different culture or background may not fully understand the English language, right? Just yet. Or vice versa. So that's very important to keep in mind when thinking of challenging behaviors. Like he may not be ignoring you, but he may not understand, right? All right. So teacher culture and behavior. So teachers have an identity, values, and beliefs that they bring to their teaching as well. Teachers' values, beliefs may be different from those of the families they serve, and teachers may perceive or understand behavior differently based on the values and beliefs. So it's important for participants to recognize that they have beliefs and values that may differ from those of the family so they can begin to identify how they might affect the view of a child's behavior. So for example, I know in some cultures, making eye contact is a form of disrespect, whereas in our culture, it's a form of respect. Like if we might say, you're talking to a child and they're looking down at the ground, and then you go, look at me, look at me. But at home, that's perceived as disrespectful to look someone in the eye. So we definitely have to make sure that we learn our our students' background and their culture as well, and understand that we do have our values and beliefs, but making sure that we are being flexible with that as well. So difference in values and beliefs can lead to differences in how behavior is viewed or addressed. So please keep that in mind as well. All right, so here we have a video. It's a very short video on research conducted by Dr. Walter Gillian at the Yale University Child Center, and the research explores how expectations can affect how teachers might view children's behavior. And so what we're going to do is we're going to watch this really short video, and then we're going to do some reflecting on it as well. Let me get this going. In just a moment. Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a new study out of the Yale Child Study Center.
That's over.
That I had to read a few times just to believe what it was telling me. The researchers recruited about 135 preschool teachers. They had them watch video footage of 4 kids playing: a black boy, a black girl, a white boy, and a white girl. And they told the teachers, their subjects, watch the video, there may be some challenging behaviors. As soon as you see something that could become challenging, hit the enter key on your keypad. Well, here's the trick. There was no challenging behavior. The researchers were using eye scan technology to see which child the teachers were looking at the most. And what they found is that the teachers, both white and black alike, spent the most time watching the black boy, waiting for bad behavior that never came. There's one more really interesting headline in this study, which comes later. The teachers were also given a 1-paragraph description to read of a hypothetical child with a stereotypical name who behaves pretty badly in class, pushes, scratches, throws toys. And some of the teachers were also given some biographical information that helped make sense of that behavior. They were told that the child lives with his mother, father has been in and out for years, they're relatively poor, the mother is depressed, works 3 jobs. The researchers wanted to know if knowing this information made the teachers more empathetic to the kid. Well, here's the shock. It did, but only if the teacher and the child were of the same race. If the teacher and the child, a white teacher and a black child, or even a black teacher and a white child, knowing that biographical information, those teachers were less empathetic towards those students. And here's why this matters. Imagine if this is true, if there's this empathy deficit in preschool, well, imagine where else that's true.
right. So let's discuss a little bit and reflect on what you learned or what stuck out to you from that video. Was there anything surprising or
I mean, I'm not surprised just because with our social media today, I mean, and in the past, that's what you've seen,
Mhm,
and it's something that is wrong because, it just doesn't matter what color or gender you are, your background can be difficult.
mhm,
Um, there could be underlying situations with all of us, no matter if we come from a high income family or a low income family. You just don't know. And sadly, because of media, we tend to assume that based on somebody's color, that, oh, well, this is what's happening and this is what's going on.
mhm,
It's
mhm.
too stereotypical. Um, and what we really need to do is we just need to, talk to the families and find out, about their background and everything so that we can understand more about the family, their culture, and
Exactly.
the things that
Mhm,
they do so that we know, okay, well, this is why this child does this. It's the behavior's not wrong.
mhm,
This is just what they're accustomed to.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, social media, I'm not a big fan because it's usually negative and not
Yeah,
positive.
right, right. I know I sometimes have to take a break from social media because it can be a lot. But yes, thank you, Laura, for sharing that. And I also found it interesting how they were saying like if it's a black child and a black teacher and a white child and a white teacher, they kind of were more like empathetic with the child and more understanding, I guess, because they have like similar backgrounds. So I found that interesting as well. But this is why it's so important to always keep an objective lens,
Yeah,
right? When viewing children with challenging behaviors and looking more so at the behavior and not just the child, right?
right.
But looking at the behavior and also the background as well to kind of figure out where um, where we can, make those connections. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Gloria. I appreciate it.
You're
Did
welcome.
anyone else have anything they wanted to add? And like I said before, feel free to put your answers or your comments in the chat, any questions or anything you might have. We're going to keep going along. Okay, well, we did this. So here we have identify when and how you respond. So these questions are provided for self-reflections based on the material we just covered. And what we can take from this is to become aware of when and how we respond to children's challenging behavior. We want to make sure that we take a moment and pause and reflect on our response. So make sure we check in with ourselves. So do I respond the same way with each child, each and every child? Do I expect the child's behavior to be challenging? So I know sometimes we have those children in our classroom who do kind of display those challenge behaviors a lot more than other children, but are you just always expecting that challenging behavior from that child? Um, when is my response different? How am I feeling when I respond? And then identify what the behavior is really trying to communicate. And if needed, develop a plan to address your response. And we can do something if we find we are responding differently to different children or certain behaviors. And we'll talk about that as well later in this upcoming training. And like I said, self-reflection is very important, and it's an important way to become more aware of your own behavior. And when challenging behavior occurs, remember that it has a meaning and it has communication. So we want to think about how you might address the behavior differently the next time it occurs. And so what about trauma? So another factor that may affect behavior is trauma. And so the trauma may have occurred in the past and it may still be ongoing. Trauma refers to events that overwhelm a child's ability to manage their own behavior. And so children could feel frightened. It could have been a harmful event, like we said, that overwhelms the child. So it could be strangers, a child could have been hurt by someone they didn't know. And so now they may have a little bit of stranger danger, trauma with strangers as well. And so our discussion is going to be brief, but just know that it can affect behavior. And we're going to be sending in the follow-up email a few handouts related to trauma and the pyramid model on the NCPMI website, including the one listed here at the bottom of this slide here. And we'll go over trauma a little bit more too in this workshop. So trauma and challenging behavior. So trauma may be related to challenging behavior, and if the child's trauma experiences are known, they should be considered when developing the intensive interventions. And a child exposed to trauma might respond to certain triggers or conditions in ways that are unexpected. So for example, something in the environment could trigger the same response that child had to the traumatic event. And we are careful in assessing behavior during the intensive individualized assessment process so we can know how to address these triggers and/or conditions. And so something in environment that may trigger the child may respond by running away, hitting, having a tantrum, becoming very withdrawn, hypervigilance, or hyperactivity. Okay, so what can you do? So while we definitely can't eliminate past traumatic events, there is a lot that early educators can do to support a child who has been exposed to trauma. And here are just a few ideas. So we definitely want to make sure we implement the pyramid model practices with having those responsive relationships and supportive, predictable environments. These are very important factors that are linked to building a child's resilience. We also want to make sure that we are teaching social emotional skills, and these are very critical for children who have experienced trauma. So those social emotional skills are going to teach them how to manage their emotions as well. We want to identify resources and support to strengthen the family functioning to help reduce that stress. So what we can do is offer support to the family. And so sometimes families just need an ear, need someone to hear them out. So we want to make sure we're listening to our families. We want to help the families make connection with resources and supports. And of course, you all may know the ELC is a big resource here in Gainesville. We do have a lot of supports that we offer families, from childcare, food pantry, clothes pantries as well. So if you know any families that are in need, please send them our way. We want to recognize the impact of traumatic events and also build on the family's strengths and promote resiliency. And then during the individualized intervention process for a child who has experienced trauma, consider this information in identifying events that trigger the behavior and the strategies to use. We might identify strategies that help the child feel safe. Make sure that all adults validate the child's emotions at an appropriate time. Teach the child to express strong emotions in a more appropriate manner, and eliminate or modify triggers that contribute to the child's challenging behavior. So if a child reacts to a particular song or won't rest if the room is too dark or does not want to have the door closed when in the bathroom, please try to do what you can to help eliminate or modify these triggers. So don't play the song when the child is there, or keep a little light close to that child when it is nap time. And if they need the door open, try to keep it a little crack for them too, just to help them feel more safe in their environment. Okay. And so the major messages that we went over today was that behavior is learned. And we know that behavior has meaning as well. And when children display those challenging behavior, is something beneath that they are really trying to communicate with us. We definitely want to consider the context. So thinking about the family's backgrounds and keeping that in the context as we try to help uh, get into those challenging behaviors and really figure out those meanings and communications behind them. We want to make sure we implement the pyramid model practices, so those nurturing and supportive relationships with the families as well as teacher and child relationships. We also want to make sure that we have those predictable routines, we set those expectations in the classroom, and that we also teach children those social emotional skills that they'll need. And then that's when we can get into using those individualized strategies for children, and then consider the family values and beliefs and consider the possible effect of trauma on behavior. Alrighty, and these are all important for developing individualized interventions that effectively reduce challenging behavior and help children with persistent challenging behavior learn new skills. So that is it for part 1 today. Next month, we will be getting into part 2. Of responding to challenging behaviors. And so that'll be looking more at helping you understand the intensive individualized intervention process, where you're going to look at the antecedent behavior, consequence, and so forth. If you would stay on for just a moment, I am going to drop in the chat the evaluation link, so to make sure that you get your hours for today. We do thank you all for attending our training today. And if you do have any questions, please stay on, and I'm willing to help you out with that. And I'll also be sending a lot of these resources in the coming up email and the follow-up email today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me grab that evaluation link. I'm going to drop that in the chat.
Thank you, ladies. Happy Mother's
Yes.
Day to all the
Oh,
moms.
thank you. Thank you. Same.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thank
Mother's
you.
Day.
Same to you all as well.
Okay, and I just put that link in the chat. And remember, if it doesn't go directly to your inbox, try checking your spam. But if that doesn't work either, because I know it's been a little funky lately with sending out everyone's certificate, don't hesitate to email me and I'll make sure I get it to you as well. And I'll stay on a few minutes. And yeah, we're done a little early. You get 15 minutes back in your day.